Have you ever had an interaction where you or someone else said, "You'll be fine. Look on the bright side. It could be worse. What you need to do is..." In our daily lives, we hear these statements constantly, but they're not usually beneficial. At the ripe old age of 17, I am surrounded by my classmates, all of us emerging adults. We have it in us to be good communicators, but don't always know what to say. Although I am targeting my advice to young adults, it's important to remember that we can all recognize what is lacking in our day-to-day interactions. Maybe we need to become more aware of what we say and what we don't say. There are lots of discussions about mental health challenges in emerging adults, especially post-pandemic, and researchers are trying to understand the causes. Our mental health is impacted by screens, sleep, trauma, genetics, substances, stress, and more. We are working hard to find accessible treatments, but there seems to be a solution that we are failing to emphasize: each other. What if we were all able to support each other? Now, I'm not saying that we need to start acting like therapists or that we need to line the high school hallways with leather couches, but we can challenge ourselves to be better communicators and listeners. But I must admit, this is easier said than done. I am not a perfect communicator. During the fall, my friends and I were applying to colleges, all writing endless essays about ourselves. One of my close friends, I'll call her Eleanor, was sharing an idea that she had for an essay. Without thinking, I said, "Oh cool, I had an idea for my essay too." And off I went, explaining my own story. I wish I had stopped and asked, "Why did you choose to write about this?" Or said, "That is a great idea. How did you think of it?" It's hard to figure out the right thing to say. I'm going to suggest that when we are responding to friends who have things to share, we follow these 3 steps. I bet you've heard of them. Stop, drop, and roll. This is a good motto to live by for both fire safety and now for our daily interactions. Picture this. You're having a conversation with a friend and they share something that matters to them. Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, pause, and resist your knee-jerk reactions. Drop, sink into their experience and explore their emotions. Roll, let them talk about their experience. Here's an example. When my friend, I'll call him Henry, shares his stress about going away to college, I have 2 choices. I could, 1, stick to my habits and interrupt with my own stress, or 2, stiff-arm the connections my brain is making to my own stories and listen to Henry. I could resist the urge to say, "You'll be fine. Look on the bright side. It could be worse. What you need to do is..." Because if I tell Henry, "You'll be fine," his fears get pushed aside. If I say, "at least," or "look on the bright side," I shift the attention to a positive outlook, preventing Henry from talking about his stress. If I say, "it could be worse," then I shove Henry's vulnerability into a box full of sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns, with a little window where he can see all of the people who are suffering more than he is. Perspective is important in hard experiences. But I can trust that when given enough time to talk about the hard things, Henry will naturally balance out the positives and the negatives without my intervention. After I pause and reflect, I could drop into Henry's experience. I could allow myself to feel uncomfortable with his vulnerability. When I'm out on a run, I often use the motto, embrace the suck, but it can be applied here too. I could embrace that hard conversations may be awkward. I don't have to decide if what Henry is feeling is right or wrong. I could just offer up possible emotions he may be feeling. For example, I could say, that sounds so overwhelming. Or ask, how are you feeling about moving away from home? Finally, what if after I stop and drop, I just roll with it? I could continue to let Henry process. I could say, it makes sense that you're terrified. This is a huge transition. This will tell Henry that he is not alone and that what he's feeling is normal. I don't have to take on everything he is feeling or make it better. The emotions from hard experiences may never fully go away, and Henry isn't asking me to fix it. I might be tempted to give advice, like, you have to get involved when you get there. But giving advice, even good advice, can unintentionally shut down a conversation when given at the wrong time. If I'm unsure whether Henry wants advice or not, I could ask him how I can support him. I could give Henry time to roll with his experience and roll along with him. Here's another example. Imagine that we are having a conversation and I tell you that this past summer, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disorder that affects your thyroid. How would you respond? If you don't stop, your knee-jerk reactions might be, oh my gosh, I have that too. My grandma has that. Oh no, well, this summer I was diagnosed with, at least you don't have. These are the reactions I received from people around me when I shared my recent diagnosis. Even though my friends and family were trying to support me, they instead made me feel like my experience wasn't important. Instead, stop and set aside these automatic reactions. Drop and imagine what I might be feeling and sink into it. Here's an example. I can imagine this must be so stressful and scary. Did you notice how I paused, exhaled, relaxed my body, and allowed myself to feel a glimpse of what the other person might have been feeling? Even if we say the right thing, if we haven't allowed ourselves to resonate with the experience, our empathy may not be conveyed. That sounds really hard, versus that sounds really hard. Finally, roll. Here's what I would have liked to hear. What has been the hardest part? Or, geez, it sounds like it's been a tough few weeks. The last few months have no doubt been maddening for my friends because of how focused I am on communication. I was often saying, what great validation? Or, yikes, way to go with the validation. Can I put that in my TEDx talk? I also became more aware of the things that I say. I realized that many things come out of my mouth that I have put in this talk as a don't. I have said many don'ts to my friend, I'll call her Olivia, who is struggling with her own health issues and having to get MRIs. Instead of acknowledging how terrifying it must be for her to be in a small, loud space and not knowing what is wrong with her body, I instead turn the attention to the fact that I've also had an MRI. There's a scene in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, where Black Widow asks, "I'm sorry, did I step on your moment?" As cool as Black Widow made it sound, I wish I hadn't been the person to step on Olivia's moment. We don't entirely understand how powerful a fulfilling conversation can be. It helps us better understand ourselves and makes us feel less alone and more normal. These conversations can be 20 seconds or they can be 15 minutes. But if we practice our skills, we can make an impact, no matter how short they are. Imagine that on a day you are struggling, you have even one conversation where your friend says, "That sounds so frustrating," or asks, "How is this affecting you?" Now imagine having 3 of those conversations. Then imagine that even on a day you aren't struggling, you have one of these conversations about normal, everyday things. How someone stole your parking spot this morning, how you got no sleep because you watched an entire season of Too Hot to Handle, how your cat barfed on your desk again. Imagine that these simple topics are followed by interesting questions that turn our daily experiences into an exciting conversation. There's a Tanzanian proverb that says, "Little by little, a little becomes a lot." Every day is an opportunity to practice our skills, and eventually it will get easier. If I had stopped, dropped, and rolled with Eleanor, Henry, and Olivia, I could have built deeper connections and learned more about them. So, to Eleanor, Henry, and Olivia, next time, I'm going to do better. This is a hidden superpower we can all be harnessing. If we stop saying, "You'll be fine," look on the bright side. It could be worse. What you need to do is, we can take the first step to becoming communication superheroes. Stop, drop, and roll isn't just for hard conversations, but all interactions. Teenager to parent, supervisor to colleague, teacher to student, coworker to coworker, friend to friend, and even stranger to stranger. So, get a little uncomfortable, embrace the suck, and stop